Hello, this is Dr. Coates. I'm going to be trying to condense as well as I can all the advice that I have you for synthesizing the research that you've done in Unit 2. As you can see from this Unit 2 schedule that I've changed, it's not going to be a spreadsheet but a worksheet, and it's going to be something that just a table that you paste into your research process log. And from there you're going to use like the fruits of that worksheet, which I'll get to in just a second, to help you fill out the grid not once but twice. Okay, I do have examples for this, and I will show them to you in just a second, but for now I just want to point out that I've pushed back the due date for the synthesis matrix. First of all, I understand that everybody's research process is going to mature at different rates, and that's fine. We're all different people, we learn differently. I don't really have any desire to create draconian due dates that would penalize some people and not others merely because of things that are often beyond your control, like work or other classes or what have you. So I do need you to finish Unit 2, and there's no way that I can read your sources for you, but I am more than happy to talk you through all of this process, and as you can see here, I've pushed back the due date for the synthesis matrix to the day that the Prezi is due. And just because you haven't seen the Unit 3 material yet, we're going to be making a Prezi because we have to do a multimodal project in this class, and I'm going to be using it before the Unit 3 paper, although the joint syllabus usually calls for it to come afterward. And the reason for that is because I want to use it as an outline in order to make it as useful as possible to you as you write your papers. So at the same time, you can be synthesizing all your material at the same time that you're thinking about how you're going to be using that material in order to advance an argument about your topic. And hopefully that's not going to be any cognitive dissonance. It's two different ways of approaching bringing all of this information together and then doing something purposeful with it. So the grid and the process log will be due alongside that, and it's going to be due on July 2nd. Now note, this is only about 10 days before the end of the semester as it appears on Banner, but that does not mean that the Unit 3 paper will automatically be due on July 2nd. So, I'm sorry, on July 12th when the semester ends. So we'll get to that in a bit, okay? So let me go to what I want to do. This. This is the template for your synthesis matrix, and as you can see, it's got several sheets down here, and this is really important because the only way to toggle between the different steps on the matrix is to actually hit sheet 1 or sheet 2 here, but as you'll see, I've already formatted them for you, so it's kind of a nice thing. The instructions for the assignment are located within its own document, but they're also here. You need 8 sources, 2 of them have to be core readings, that 1 should have come from another student if at all possible. You want to create the list of sources first and then come up with topics that you could use to group information from multiple sources ideally, and you want to cast a wide net for this first stage, knowing that you can always delete stuff later if it doesn't work. And then you wait for my feedback, okay? Alternatively, you can also initiate an email or a telephone or a Skype or a Google Hangout conference with me. I'm more than happy to walk you through this. Frankly, although I do support online education, this is the thing that is most useful if you're actually looking at, if we're actually looking at each other. And so, while not impossible, it is a little bit harder than it should be, I think, if you're taking a face-to-face course. And I just wanted to get that out of the way. But that doesn't mean that I want anyone to fail this assignment. It's just something that has to be done, and especially if this is the first time that you've done a lot of research and put it into a paper, it can be daunting. Okay, but it doesn't have to be because you're not alone. Let's look at stage 1. Okay, here you can see you've got parchment yellow. So if you're working with parchment yellow, then you know you're in phase 1. You're going to be putting your research question right here. And by the way, replace these things. Don't just put like pattern 1 colon. Just put the pattern in. Here's your research question, and then across the top there are 8 columns corresponding with the 8 sources, and you can see that column A is frozen so that you've always got the pattern there. And then there are going to be 5 of these patterns. So If I go down here, you'll see that this first row is frozen too, so you always know which source is which. By the way, these boxes are text wrapped, so if you paste something into it, they'll just expand as much as you need them to, given the width of the column. Okay, so what you want to do is to come up with topics that are relevant to your research question and which would allow you to pull information. And here that's in the form of quotations. You're going to be pulling the quotes, copying them, pasting them into these boxes, and then sort of like paraphrasing them for yourself if the quotation is so dense or taken out of context that you need to explain what it is to yourself. Okay, stage 1 and to a certain extent stage 2 is designed with yourself as the audience. Okay, this is just a way of taking notes. I think it's a useful way for visual learners. It's not the only way, but I'd like you to try this if you've never done it before. So the first step is to come up with the patterns, and then the second step is to just copy and paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. The goal is not to fill in every box, but the goal is to create topics that will allow you to talk about sources multiply. So I need you to have at least 2 boxes filled per row and 2 boxes filled per column, because I don't want these sources to be one-offs. Okay, these are the sources that are going to aid you in coming up with a way of entering into the conversation that you want your research project to change, basically. All right, so after you've got everything pasted in here, then you would go to stage 2, which is green, as you can see, and also text wrap. So just because nothing has been pasted in here doesn't mean that it won't be. Here I've changed up a little bit. The sources are still the same, but instead of a research question, it's going to be your synthetic goal, because you don't necessarily have to answer your research question directly as your thesis statement for the Unit 3 paper. It could just be a way of organizing all the information that you've got. Okay, and if your research question changes all the way right up until you make this matrix, and then you decide, you know what, the best way of organizing all of this is slightly different than the question that I used to get the sources in the first place, that is fine. That is absolutely fine. It's kind of a feature of the class rather than a bug. Okay, the things that we use to pull information are often not exactly the same things that we would use in order to organize it. Okay, and here instead of topics, they're conceptual categories. So you want to go from something that's probably like a word or a phrase on sheet 1 to something that could be a sentence or something that you could imagine being a section header in an APA research paper. And that's going to help you to do the next part, which is to copy and paste all of the information that's on sheet 1 and then stop using sheet 1 altogether. And this one will be like the vault. This is where all the information is. If you need it, it's still there. You're just going to be amending it on sheet 2. That's the reason why we have multiple sheets. Okay. Here what you want to do is to take the quotations that you've pasted in there and to paraphrase them in your own words. First of all, this is because APA does not really care for quotations, because APA, the sciences do not really care about flowery writing or flair. They care about ideas and clarity. Believe it or not, if you've read some social science articles up to this point, they want it to be clear. And the difficulty with which that is for many of these scientists is evident when you read the scholarly sources, unfortunately. But you and I don't have to make that mistake. So what you want to do is to take the quotation and then maybe use the paraphrase that you made in sheet 1, maybe not. Look and see whether, when you look at them all in a row, let's say I'm on conceptual category 1, and I want to look at them all in a row. It's not always going to make sense when you're writing the paper to go from source 1 to source 8. You know what I mean? It's very likely that each one of these different categories will proceed in a different order, and you can't move around the sources because category 2 might be different, and they're all going to be different, and they may not all be sources that you talk about at once. But I would like to suggest to you that you can stretch out these sources and do more with less, in which case then that would be a source that you use in more than one part of the paper, but in different ways. So you want them to be qualitatively different ways that you're using them. And here you're basically paraphrasing the quotations from sheet 1 in light of the conceptual categories that are over here in column A. Okay, I have an example of this that is just for the core readings, which I'd like to show you, and of course we'll share with you. So one sec. So this is the document that you'll see if you click on the link that's on the Unit 2 schedule. for empty RQ worksheet. I had done this in the past as a spreadsheet, but the tables that you can put into Google Docs are just as useful, I think. So there will be a spreadsheet that I'll show you in just a second, but I think you can do the same thing here. And by the way, these boxes will all just expand out as big as you need them to be in order to do what you need to do. But this particular step is fairly simple. What I want you to do is to think back to the search terms that you put into the library's search box in order to find the sources that you found. Alternatively, you can find the source that is most up your alley, the one that best matched the thing that you were hoping to find in the first place, and then go back to the library archive record by searching for it again in the library search box, and then looking at the subject headers, and those are what at least librarians thought were good ways of categorizing what was in that source. Okay, so this is just a way of brainstorming topics and then eventually conceptual categories. So what I say is put like 5 search terms that you remember using, or come up with 2 more than the 3 you used, or what have you. Come up with 5, and then down here under alternatives, just come up with synonyms, as many as you need, and keep on going down. Synonyms are alternative ways of phrasing it. The better answers for this are going to be the ones that you can apply to more than one source, and ideally, most if not all of them, because you have 8 that you need to get through. You can't talk about them all one by one. That would be boring as all get out. So yeah, you need to find a way of being able to have these things be in a conversation with each other. Here's the example I've got. Okay, now as you can see, it's for Eye of the Sparrow, which is which is a lip dub of the first presidential debate in the 2012 election. Let's see. It's by Bad Lip Reading, which is famous for a variety of things. They make the NFL videos every year, and they also the guy also does music videos that have way different tempos and lyrics and so forth. The thing that interests me about it is because the lip reader is trying to come up with words that will match the expressions and what they're mouthing, what the people in the videos are mouthing. It's often random, but every now and then, as you'll see from the post, it seems to make some sense. And for whatever reason, I find that extremely effective. And so my research question is, for the case of BLR's Eye of the Sparrow, what makes the collision of randomness and unexpected irony so profound? So the search terms that I would have put in are social media, which would give you millions of hits, unexpected, which got me nothing, irony, which has some stuff, and then lip reading, which is probably too new, or perhaps not the term that the experts would use to describe this. So down here under alternatives, I've got for social media random for some reason, because I don't think that works better for unexpected, but algorithm, computer generated, YouTube, pop culture, and shared. Not all of those are synonyms with each other, but you can get from social media to all of them with one step. Okay, and then here under unexpected, which I don't think will yield very much, you've got random, nonsense or nonsensical, profound. Serendipity is a nice word, but I doubt it's going to show up in any titles for sources. It just means, great luck and then recognition. I suppose luck could be in there too, but again, I don't think that's going to be in any scholarly titles. As for irony, you need to have some sort of expectation or frame in order to find the thing funny in the first place. And it's an element of the comedy, the humor, the satire that's within the video. And then as for lip reading, I've heard it called lip dubs. It's a mashup, it's a repurposed, and it's a remix. I'm not saying that this is exhaustive, but it is something that I then used to come up with I would then use to come up with conceptual categories, which would be longer and more involved than these topics. But again, if you go back here to your matrix template, the idea is just to use the topics to be able to allow you to pull as much as you can out of your sources. And again, you can do this multiple times. That's actually ideal. You can always delete it later, right? Because sheet 1 will be the vault. Sheet 2 will be the place where you delete it all. But at least for now, let's think about it. Okay, so the example that I have for the template matrix is just for the core readings, and you can see it says sample. So just for the core readings, the research question I've got here is, why has social media evolved or matured the way it has over the last decade or so? And then as you can see, I only have 5 columns because, oh wait, I have 6 maybe. It goes Sommerfeld, Lakoff, A and B, Hampton, Gladwell, and Shirky. Yeah, that's 5. I only have 5 columns, and you'll have 8, of course, but I'm working with the information that we all read in common, so that's why. Now, not every one of these sources was about, why things are on social media are impactful. They're not even all about social media, for that matter. But I did pick them with an eye towards giving you sources that would allow you to say certain things about what you're likely to find on the internet. So I got social media impact. I have virality, or how things go viral. I have the social media players. I guess that's the who is influential on social media and why. This is how is social media changing our culture or changing itself. And then here's the responsibility that people who create content for the internet, like I'm about to do, bear for the things that they post. Okay? So you remember the core readings. I guess one thing that I want to point out, because I don't want to go over every single thing in here, but I've got opportunity cost in more than one place. This is a quote from Shirky, and it's from the second chapter of Shirky, where he's talking about railroads and how if you disrupt the managerial hierarchy, then you can get a lot more done really quickly, or things that you would never have gotten done in the past because it didn't have there wasn't enough resources or energy to spend it on something like that. So I've got it here for the impact. It's going to impact the ways that we structure hierarchies, or if we have hierarchies at all. And then I also have it down here in social media and change. So this is not so much how organizations are changing, but how you can use social media now to change institutions. And here I'm thinking of Chapter 3. As it says here, the traditional news media was changed in ways that are disruptive, hard to predict, where once the cost of focusing on trivial matters kept them out of view, now everything is freely shareable. Where once organizations could only become so big without becoming top-heavy, now organizations can become endlessly massive while still affording direct contact between owner and user. Where once the news cycle was dictated by a handful of powerful men, nowadays a great number of people can create and disseminate information without having to possess a printing press. Okay? Mass amortization means a more democratic news media, which of course is debatable, but that's the point. They can't all be right because they disagree with each other. And just because you can publish something to the web doesn't mean that it'll go viral, as Gladwell points out. Okay, so let's see here. What's a good example of... Yeah, okay, so Sommerfeld, you can see there are long, long quotations. And what I've done for something like this, after an arrow, there's my little paraphrase, public relations, and it's much shorter, of course. It's up to you whether or not you want to copy everything that's in a box over to the other page. I think actually it's easier if you only take your paraphrases, or if you paraphrase the quotation that had no help. Or say here for Hampton, I've got 4 lines from the source, and then 3 lines of my reaction to it. The reaction is going to be the thing that's more important. After all, you want to use the matrix in order to help you write the paper, so if you're kind of writing it while you're in this grid, then you can just use it, and it's already organized for you. So let me take you to sheet 2. Here we are. So you can see the research question has evolved a little bit, and it's why has social media matured in the way that it has over the last decade or so. And then we went from, social media impact to what's the best way to think about the impact of Web 2.0 on culture. We went from virality to what goes viral and why. We went from SM players to who are the most successful players on social media. Not much of a change, I grant you, but still something that I could see within a paper. Is social media reflecting changes in society, or is it responsible for that change? That would not be a good section title. That's unwieldy. But as a conceptual category, it's much more descriptive and targeted than what was on sheet 1. Okay? And then if everything can be disrupted now, what responsibilities do content creators have? What's the best way to make positive changes via social media? And you could say, Jason, isn't that 2 different questions? Maybe I should have a 6th row. And I would say, you're only required to have 5, so There's no reason to do more. There's a lot of work going on within these boxes, and so I would keep it to 8 sources and 5 categories. Most of my students find it hard to get up to that 5th category anyway, but all of them use all 5 when they're writing their paper. You will use it. So anyway, take my advice, please, and do the 5x8 grid within the frozen rows and columns here. Okay. So there are some cases in which I copied from sheet 1, and then of course it's again after the dashes. But in most cases, these things have been adapted. This is where you take notes on your notes. If sheet 1 is basically you copying your quotations into a grid, here's where you want to like make little paraphrases or notes to yourself. For example, if this is going to be a section within your paper, what goes viral and why, if you had the choice between Shirky, Gladwell, Hampton, Lakoff, and Sommerfeld, which one would you talk about most in terms of what goes viral? It would be Gladwell. And so I've got this right here. Gladwell really is the best source to use for discussing why something goes viral. The key to understanding his terminology is to recognize that connectors, mavens, and salespersons seem to possess inborn traits and proclivities. You can't train yourself to be a connector, for example. You're just born that way. You're just born that way. Anyway, this is just a note to say you're going to make a big deal out of Gladwell within this section. He appears in other sections, of course, because there's a lot within that chapter, but for the what goes viral, that's basically the reason why I chose the tipping point for you to read. Okay, these are your notes again. They need to make sense to you. I will scan them and just to see if the grid was useful to you, but I guess the thing I want to say right now is that you want to make sure that you keep page numbers and paragraph numbers, if there are no page numbers, here, even to sheet 2. So I mean, definitely put them in sheet 1 as you paste in your quotations because you're already there. You're looking at the source. You're going to need it. You might as well put it in. Okay? You're going to need it later. I mean, when you write the paper. So you might as well put it in. Unless you are paraphrasing the entire source, you have to have a page number or a paragraph number if there are no page numbers. So Lakoff was an example of a website that was written for the web and therefore has no pages. You have to use paragraph numbers. Hampton is another example of this. That was a Pew Research report, and so you have to have paragraph numbers. If you're looking at the beginning of it, you can just count the number of paragraphs from the beginning. If it's something really long, like the 2 Lakoff blog posts, then you can always name the section and then the paragraph number within that section, which is kind of nice. So here's biconceptuals. Here is the responsible reporter's problem, paragraphs 3 and 5. It's just a kind of a suaver and more elegant way of doing it. Okay, so you will have this document to look over at your leisure. You have me to talk to through a variety of different ways. I'm looking forward to helping you. I can't read the sources for you, but as soon as you finish stage 1, which is the sheet 1 down here, I'd like you to contact me, and then we can talk about how to get from there to stage 2. If you're really, gearing up to, if you can't wait to work on this paper and you want to get on to sheet 2, then that's fine. I may suggest some things that will make you revise it, though. My goal here is not to have you write a paper in the way that I would, or to come up with a claim that I'm going to sanction or anything like that. My goal is just to help you come up with ways of organizing all this material. And then knowing what to do with it when you get to the other place, which is the paper. Okay, I don't have to agree with your claim, as we'll talk about more in Unit 3, but I do need to see you supporting yourself, which is a very different thing altogether. Thank you.